Hello, fellow Bengals fans. It's Forever Bengals here. We're going to talk a little bit about the first round bye, second seed in the playoffs, and how everything is kind of shaping up. Right now, we have the third seed in the playoff. We don't have a first round bye. We would actually play Jacksonville. Uh, however, there is hope that we could still get the first round bye and second seed. It all depends upon the AFC West. We want to own the tiebreaker over San Diego, and then we want San Diego to win the division. That is what we as Bengals fans should be wanting, because if we win the tiebreaker and if we win the tiebreaker and they win the division, we get the second seed. So the game in San Diego is going to be very important. Now let's look at the upcoming schedule with the San Diego Chargers. They have to play Dallas this week, then us. Then they get to go, let's see, what is that? They get to go back home, I believe. Their schedule right now is they have Dallas, then us at home, then they go to Tennessee, and then they get Washington at home. So out of those 4 wins, we have well, 4 games, we have one almost guaranteed win, and that's Washington. Even though Washington has shown some fight recently, and they could actually come back and win it, and they might want to play spoiler, but that's one game right there. Now, the Cowboys, they've always come up short in December. They could easily win that game, and that'll just help improve their chances. But then they have to play us. Now, the 2 teams that beat them this year, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, we beat them, and we play a similar style of football, so that gives us an edge over San Diego. I'm not as scared of San Diego as a lot of people are. I don't consider San Diego an elite team. I don't really consider any team in the AFC West an elite team. I don't overlook them. I think they can beat us. However, I just don't think they're a strong team. I think if San Diego was in the North, you'd never hear San Diego. They'd be down there with the Browns every year. Same thing with the Broncos, and same thing with the Raiders and Chiefs. They were over in the North, they would be the bottom feeders. They would never make it to the playoffs. So that's why I say they're not an elite team. They could not handle it in any other division. I even say if they were in the AFC East or AFC South, they'd still be part of the bottom feeders, because they'd have to contend with the Patriots every year. They'd have to contend with Indianapolis, the Jacksonville Jags, and the Tennessee Titans, and even the Houston Texans. So that's why I say that they would never make it in any other division. They're in the perfect division to make them look better than they are. So I'm not too worried about that whole division being elite. So, but I do want to get that first round bye. And here's a scenario that I can see. I want the Cowboys to beat the Chargers, and I want the Bengals to beat the Vikings this coming week. Obviously, that gives us the number 2 seed and 1 game ahead of the Chargers, as well as 2 games ahead. It should put us 2 games ahead of Denver. Now, that's with Denver's schedule. And they have the Indianapolis Colts this week, so that'll put, and if they lose to the Colts, that puts us 2 games ahead. Now, the Chargers, when we play them in the event that we beat the Chargers, they would still be one game ahead of Denver, considering that Denver would lose to Indianapolis, and we would actually own the head-to-head tiebreaker. Excuse me, we'd own the head-to-head tiebreaker, and we would also own the be one game ahead of them. And in that instance, I think we'd actually be 2 games ahead of them. So, that would basically clinch us the division and that that number 2 seed at that particular time. It'd be almost impossible for us to lose it. However, it doesn't guarantee that we have it. It all but guarantees it almost. All but clinches. Because the Denver Broncos, they have an easier schedule than the Chargers. Because if the Chargers lose to us and then they go to Tennessee, and Tennessee's been playing pretty lights out, and they lose to Tennessee, then and the Broncos wind up winning out, then the Broncos can actually take the division. And if the Broncos win out and they tie us in the standings, they own the tiebreaker, and they would actually knock us back down to the 3rd seed. So that's why we want the Chargers to win the division over the Broncos, so that we don't have to worry about the tiebreaker if we wind up winning, beating them. So here's how the Broncos schedule looks. They have at Indianapolis this week, which should be a loss. They have Oakland come into town, which Oakland, depends on which team we see. If we see the team that beat the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers, we should see the team that beat Denver. And Denver's not immune at losing at Invesco Field. Then they have to play at Philly. Now, Philly is dangerous. Philly could be a loss for them. And then they have Kansas City. So, all in all, we should clinch with a win over San Diego, but I think the clinching will happen when we play Kansas City. We'd have to beat Kansas City to clinch that. So, between the 2 teams, their schedules, looking at their schedules, it looks like the Broncos have an easier schedule. However, San Diego could still win the division, and that's what we want. We want San Diego to win the division with us having owning the tiebreaker over them to clinch it. And let's just go for posterity here and just not even worry about the tiebreaker. If we go 3 games above Denver, and Denver winds up losing any of to Philly, that gets us the win. And that's of course why Kansas City would be important. That would be that week. And if the Chargers wind up playing against us and losing, then we'll have 2 games ahead of them, and let that all work out however it works out. But I really believe that we have a good chance of getting the number 2 seed this year. And just looking at these 2 teams and looking at their schedules, I'd say that San Diego is going to still get the division, and the Broncos will get the wild card. And who knows, they might even have to play each other. And if they did, good luck to either team. I mean, both teams, they split this year, they split this season, and I think it would really matter of who has home field advantage and who doesn't. And of course, the loser of that would probably have to come to Cincinnati and play us. So here's to a good game between the 2 teams. Good season for the rest of the year for both teams, except for when we play the Chargers. I hope we dominate and win, because a win over the Chargers would all but clinch us the spot, and then we would have the next 2 teams would be cakewalks in Kansas City and the Jets. So that's it about those 2 teams. I'm Forever Bengals. I'm out.